The massive Imperial ship broke through Earth's atmosphere like a dark cloud blocking out the sun. Its surface gleamed with a metallic purple sheen that had never been seen on any human-made vessel. At 12 miles long, it dwarfed everything humanity had ever built in space. Inside the United Earth Defense Force headquarters, Admiral James Stone watched the alien ship's descent on the main screen. His weathered face showed no fear, only calm determination. Next to him, the room full of military officers and world leaders held their breath. "They're broadcasting a message, sir," said one of the communication officers. "It's being translated now." The message appeared on the screen in multiple languages. It was simple and direct. "We are the Galactic Empire. We rule 300 species across 1,000 star systems. Prepare for peaceful integration into our empire." Admiral Stone straightened his blue uniform and smiled slightly. "Send them our prepared response." The Empire's ship had stopped about 3 miles above New York City. Its shadow covered most of Manhattan, making the day look like early evening. Smaller ships began emerging from its sides, each one still bigger than Earth's largest aircraft carriers. Lord Grey, the Empire's chief ambassador, sat on his command throne aboard the main ship. He had overseen 50 peaceful integrations in his long career. To him, this was just another simple task. His gray skin and large, pupilless eyes reflected the soft light of the control room as he waited for Earth's response. "My lord," one of his officers called out, "we're receiving their message." Lord Grey waved his hand lazily. "Play it." Admiral Stone's face appeared on their viewing screen. His voice was calm but carried a weight that made several Imperial officers shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Greetings, Galactic Empire. I am Admiral James Stone of the United Earth Defense Force. We appreciate your offer of peaceful integration, but we must decline. We wish to remain independent. We strongly advise you to respect our decision." Lord Grey laughed, a sound like metal scraping against stone. "Advise us? How quaint." He turned to his communication officer. "Tell them about our last 100 integrations. Perhaps they need to understand their position better." Before they could send their response, Admiral Stone's message continued. "We know you have successfully integrated many species. We know your empire is vast and powerful, but you have never faced humans in war. For your own sake, we warn you now. Leave us be or face consequences you cannot imagine." The Imperial bridge crew exchanged amused looks. Lord Grey stood up from his throne, his tall, thin frame casting a long shadow. "They dare to threaten us. Show them our fleet." At his command, 500 more ships emerged from hyperspace, filling Earth's orbit with their massive forms. Satellites went dark as the ships positioned themselves in a display of overwhelming force. In the UEVF headquarters, world leaders began to whisper nervously. Admiral Stone remained unmoved. "Sir," his assistant said quietly, "shouldn't we show them some of our capabilities? To make them take our warning seriously?" Stone shook his head. "No, that's not how this works. We gave them a fair warning. What happens next is their choice." The Empire's response came quickly. "Your bravery is admirable but misplaced. We have ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. No species has ever successfully resisted integration. Your warning is noted, but unnecessary. Prepare for immediate integration procedures." Admiral Stone looked around the room at Earth's gathered leaders. They all nodded slowly, understanding what came next. He pressed a button on his command console, sending one final message. "We warned you to run. Remember that. Whatever happens next, remember that we tried to prevent it. Humanity has fought itself for thousands of years. We've mastered the art of war in ways you cannot understand. This is your last chance to leave." Lord Grey received the message with growing irritation. In 10,000 years of expansion, no species had ever been so persistently defiant. He turned to his war council. "Prepare the standard subjugation fleet. 100 ships should be more than enough for this primitive world." As the Empire prepared for what they thought would be a simple show of force, Admiral Stone activated Earth's hidden defense network. Deep under the oceans, buried in mountains, and hidden in orbit, humanity's real military power waited silently. Unlike the Empire's bright, obvious display of force, Earth's weapons remained invisible. The first battle of humanity's war with the Galactic Empire was about to begin. Only one side knew what was really coming. Before the Empire could launch their attack, Dr. Thomas Reed had one last card to play. As Earth's chief diplomat, he requested an emergency meeting with Lord Grey. The Empire, following their tradition of appearing reasonable, agreed. The meeting took place in a neutral location, a specially constructed room in Geneva. Large windows showed the Imperial ships still hovering in the sky, their shadows creating artificial night across the city. Lord Grey walked into the room with 4 armed guards. He looked down at Dr. Reed, who sat calmly at a large table with a simple black briefcase in front of him. The room's only other feature was a large screen on the wall. "You're wasting our time," Lord Grey said, his voice cold. "Your admiral has already refused integration. Protocol demands we now show you the cost of that decision." Dr. Reed smiled softly. "We requested this meeting not to negotiate, but to educate. Please sit. There's something you need to see before you make your final decision." Curious despite himself, Lord Grey sat down. His guards remained standing, weapons ready. "Computer," Dr. Reed called out, "begin historical presentation." The screen lit up with footage from Earth's history. It started with ancient battles. Romans, Greeks, medieval knights. Lord Grey looked bored. "Primitive combat," he said. "All species have such history." "Keep watching," Dr. Reed said quietly. The footage shifted to World War I trenches filled with soldiers, gas attacks, the first tanks rolling across battlefields. Lord Grey's expression changed slightly. "That was just over 100 years ago," Reed explained. "Now watch what we achieved in just 30 more years." World War II footage played next. Nuclear explosions, massive air battles, submarines, radar technology. Lord Grey's guards stepped closer to the screen, their weapons lowering as they watched in fascination. "Impossible," Lord Grey whispered. "This rate of military advancement is unique to humans," Reed finished. "We advance fastest when we're at war, but that's not the important part. Computer, show the adaptation footage." The screen split into multiple sections, each showing how human warfare changed and adapted. Guerrilla tactics in dense jungles, desert warfare, urban combat, cyber attacks, space warfare simulations. "Notice something?" Reed asked. "We don't just fight, we adapt. Every new battlefield, every new challenge, we change our entire way of fighting. No fixed patterns, no standard responses." Lord Grey's large eyes narrowed. "You're still centuries behind our technology." Reed opened his briefcase and pulled out a single tablet. "Are we? We've had your ships in our skies for less than 24 hours. In that time, our AI systems have already identified 37 critical weaknesses in your shield configurations. Your engine designs are efficient, but predictable. Your weapons are powerful, but slow to adjust aim." "You're bluffing," Lord Grey said, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. "We've been watching your ship's energy patterns," Reed continued. "Your technology hasn't changed significantly in what? 1,000 years. You perfected a system and stopped innovating. Humanity, we never stop. We've already developed countermeasures to your main weapons. Would you like to see them?" Lord Grey stood up abruptly. "These lies won't save you. We have integrated hundreds of species." "Yes," Reed interrupted, "species that follow patterns. Species that fight the same way every time. Species that took thousands of years to develop what we achieved in centuries." He stood up and looked Lord Grey directly in the eyes. "We're not trying to save ourselves. We're trying to save you." The screen behind them showed one final image. A simulation of Imperial ships being destroyed by weapons they couldn't even see. "This is what will happen in the first wave," Reed explained calmly. "We'll destroy your ships using methods you haven't even imagined. Then we'll adapt to whatever you send next. And we'll keep adapting, keep changing, keep evolving our tactics until..." "Until what?" Lord Grey asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Until there is no more Empire." Reed walked to the door, then turned back. "We warned you to run. That warning still stands. What happens next is your choice. As Dr. Reed left the room, Lord Grey stared at the simulation still playing on the screen. For the first time in his long career, he felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. Back in the Imperial flagship, Lord Grey would have to make a decision, but as he watched the humans' battle footage again on his private screen, he realized something terrifying. He was no longer sure what that decision should be. Lord Grey's doubt lasted exactly 6 hours. Then his pride won over. Launch the subjugation fleet, he ordered from his command throne. Show these humans the difference between their primitive recordings and real Imperial power. 100 Imperial warships moved into attack formation. Each ship was 2 miles long, covered in weapons that could level cities. They looked unstoppable against Earth's dark sky. Commander Mary Walker watched them from her small command ship, hidden behind Earth's moon. Her vessel was just 1/10 the size of the Imperial ships, but she smiled as she watched them approach. "They're using standard attack formation," her tactical officer reported. "Exactly like the patterns we studied." Walker nodded. "They really don't know how to change, do they?" She opened a channel to all Earth forces. "Remember, everyone, stick to Plan 3. Let them think they're winning for the first 5 minutes." The Imperial fleet launched their first attack right on schedule. Energy beams powerful enough to crack continents shot toward Earth's 20 visible defense ships. "How sad," the Imperial fleet commander said, watching the beams approach the small human fleet. "This will be over in seconds." But when the beams hit, something impossible happened. The human ships didn't explode. Instead, the energy seemed to flow around them like water. "Energy absorption shields," Walker said to her crew, "reverse engineered from their own technology and improved. Now, show them what Earth ships can really do." The 20 Earth ships suddenly split apart, each one breaking into 5 smaller vessels. 100 human ships now faced 100 Imperial ships. "Impossible," the Imperial commander shouted. "They're ships. They're transformers." "Phase 2, Walker ordered calmly. The human ships vanished from the Imperial sensors. They had copied the light-bending technology from studying the Imperial ships' hulls, but made it work better. In the confusion, Earth's real defense grid activated. Hidden weapons platforms around the planet powered up. But they didn't fire normal weapons. Instead, they released swarms of tiny drones, each one carrying a special package. "My lord," an Imperial officer shouted, "something is attaching to our hulls." Thousands of small drones latched onto the Imperial ships. Each drone carried a simple device that Earth scientists had created by studying the Imperial shields. The devices didn't try to break through the shields. They changed them. Shields failing. Reports came from 60 Imperial ships. Their own energy fields turned inward, crushing sections of their ships. "This is impossible," the Imperial commander kept saying. "They're centuries behind us." Walker's voice came over all channels, broadcasting to every Imperial ship. "We warned you. We gave you a chance to leave. This is just the start." The remaining 40 Imperial ships tried to regroup, but Earth's vessels were already among them. The human ships fought unlike anything the Empire had seen. Each ship acted independently. No formation, no patterns, just pure chaos that somehow worked perfectly. "They're not following any known combat doctrine," Lord Grey said, watching the battle from his flagship. "How do we fight an enemy that doesn't follow rules?" Within the first hour, 60 Imperial ships were destroyed or disabled. The humans had lost only 5 ships, and even those had managed to eject their crews to safety. "Phase 3, Walker commanded. Her ship suddenly appeared right next to the Imperial flagship. But instead of attacking, she broadcast a message to all surviving Imperial ships. "Round 1 is over. 60 of your ships are gone. We're giving you another chance to retreat. Take it." In the Imperial flagship, Lord Grey faced a decision he had never made before. "Status report," he demanded. "My lord," his officer replied, "they're using our own technology against us, but better. They've made improvements we never thought of. And their battle tactics. There's no pattern to analyze, no way to predict their next move." Lord Grey looked at the debris of his ships floating in space. The humans had taken Imperial technology, improved it in hours, and used it in ways the Empire had never imagined. And somehow, he knew this was just the beginning. "Signal the retreat," he ordered quietly. As his surviving ships prepared to withdraw, he added, "and send a message to High Command. Tell them we've made a terrible mistake." The Imperial High Council chamber was silent as Lord Grey's report played on the massive screen. 12 ancient rulers watched their ships being destroyed by an enemy they had dismissed as primitive. The room, usually filled with confidence and pride, now felt cold with fear. Lord Black, the Empire's chief military analyst, stood before the council. His hands shook slightly as he held his data tablet. In 5,000 years, he had never had to deliver news like this. "My lords," he began, "we have made a critical error in judgment. These humans, they're different from every species we've encountered." The head counselor leaned forward on his golden throne. "Explain." Lord Black played a series of battle recordings. "Look at these attack patterns. Every other species we fought used predictable strategies. The plant people of Sector 7 always attacked in spiral formations. The crystal beings of Sector 12 used linear assault patterns. But the humans—" He showed footage of Earth's ships in battle. Each vessel moved independently, yet somehow worked together perfectly. Some charged straight in, others laid traps, while others used tactics the Empire had never seen before. "They have no fixed pattern," Lord Black continued. "When one strategy stops working, they instantly switch to another. They don't even seem to plan it. They just adapt naturally." "Surely our superior technology," one counselor began. "Is being used against us," Lord Black interrupted. He showed how the humans had modified Imperial shield technology. They didn't just copy our technology. They improved it. In ours, they found ways to use our own shields to crush our ships. We've had this technology for thousands of years and never thought of that." The council chamber erupted in worried whispers. The head counselor raised his hand for silence. "There's more," Lord Black said quietly. "We intercepted some of their communications during the battle. Listen to this." He played an audio clip of human commanders discussing battle plans. "If this doesn't work, try something else. Anything else. Just don't be predictable." "This is their military doctrine," Lord Black explained. "Complete flexibility. No fixed rules. They create new strategies in the middle of battle. How do we fight an enemy that doesn't follow any patterns we can analyze?" A young counselor stood up. "We've ruled space for 10,000 years. We can't be defeated by primitives who just reached their moon." Lord Black shook his head. "That's another thing we got wrong. Look at their advancement timeline." He showed a graph. Other species took thousands of years to advance from simple tools to space flight. Humans had done it in less than 300 years. "And look what happens when they fight," he continued. "Every war they've fought has led to massive technological leaps. The more we fight them, the stronger they'll become. They're not just different in how they fight. They're different in how they learn and adapt." The head counselor's face had gone pale. "They're warning. They weren't threatening us. They were trying to protect us from ourselves." "Exactly," Lord Black said. "We thought they were primitive because they still fight among themselves. But those internal conflicts have taught them things we never learned in 10,000 years of easy victories." He played one final recording, the last transmission from a destroyed Imperial ship. "They're everywhere. They don't follow any battle logic. How do we fight something that keeps changing?" The council chamber was silent again. Finally, the head counselor spoke. How many ships would it take to defeat them? Lord Black laughed nervously. "My lords, you don't understand. We could send our entire fleet, and they would adapt, learn, change. Every ship we lose would make them stronger. Every technology we use would be turned against us, improved, and used in ways we never imagined. Then what do you suggest?" "We do what they warned us to do in the first place," Lord Black said simply. "We run, before they decide to stop giving us chances to retreat." As if to emphasize his point, a new message appeared on the main screen. It was from Earth. "This is your final warning. Next time, We won't hold back." The Empire, for the first time in 10,000 years, felt true fear, because for the first time they faced an enemy that didn't play by their rules, and they had no idea how to handle that. The Empire made its decision. Pride won over fear. Their main fleet, 1,000 of their most powerful warships, emerged from hyperspace around Earth. Each ship was bigger than their previous vessels, bristling with planet-killing weapons. "No more games," the Imperial Grand Admiral announced to his fleet. "No more warnings. We will show these humans what real power looks like." On Earth, Admiral Stone watched the massive fleet appear on his command screen. Behind him, Captain Robert Wells stood with his small team of Special Forces operators. "They still don't understand," Wells said quietly. Stone nodded. "No, they don't. Launch operation hidden hand." Across Earth, secret facilities activated, but instead of ships rising to meet the Imperial fleet, something else happened. The space around Earth seemed to ripple, like heat waves over hot pavement. "My lord," an Imperial sensor officer called out. "We're detecting thousands of small objects appearing from nowhere." The Empire had expected Earth's 20 visible ships again. Instead, they faced 10,000 small drones, each one barely larger than a car. The drones moved like a swarm of angry bees, their patterns impossible to predict. "Impossible," the Grand Admiral shouted. Where were they hiding? The answer came from Wells, who had hacked into their communication system. "We weren't hiding them. We were building them while you gathered your fleet. Meet our eye-driven combat drones, designed specifically to fight you." The drones attacked. Unlike traditional weapons, each one carried a different type of device. Some disrupted Imperial shields. Others released electromagnetic pulses that confused Imperial targeting systems. Many simply rammed into the larger ships at speeds that turned them into devastating weapons. "They're learning." An Imperial captain screamed as his ship's systems failed. "The drones are learning from each attack." He was right. Each drone fed data back to Earth's quantum computers, which updated the attack patterns of all other drones instantly. The Empire's ships found themselves fighting an enemy that adapted its strategy every second. But Earth wasn't done. While the drones occupied the main fleet, Wells and his team executed the second part of their plan. Their small stealth ship, completely invisible to Imperial sensors, approached the Imperial flagship. "Remember," Wells told his team, "we only need 10 minutes." Using technology reversed engineered from Imperial ships, they cut through the flagship's hull and entered. The Empire, so focused on big weapons and massive ships, had never considered such a small-scale attack. Inside the flagship, Wells's team moved like ghosts. They had studied Imperial ship layouts, found every weakness. Within minutes, they reached the main engine room. "Such a big ship," Wells said as he planted special devices around the engine core. "Such an obvious target." The Grand Admiral finally noticed the intruders, but too late. Wells activated the devices, tiny machines that began rewriting the flagship's computer systems. "What are you doing?" the Grand Admiral demanded over the ship's speakers. "Taking your ship," Wells replied calmly. "Your technology is impressive, but your computer security is 10,000 years out of date. You never needed to improve it, until now." Across the flagship, systems began shutting down. Emergency doors closed, trapping Imperial crews in their sections. The massive ship, pride of the Imperial fleet, was being captured by 6 humans with stolen technology. In space, the drone swarm had destroyed or disabled 300 Imperial ships. The remaining ships tried to maintain formation, but their tactics were useless against an enemy that changed strategies faster than they could react. "Final warning," Stone's voice boomed across all Imperial channels. "Your flagship is captured. Your fleet is being decimated. Your choice: retreat now, or we'll use your own flagship to destroy the rest of your fleet." The Grand Admiral, locked in his own command room, watched helplessly as his ship's weapons turned toward his own fleet. The Empire, which had never lost a war in 10,000 years, faced a choice: total defeat or retreat in shame. "Signal the retreat," he ordered, his voice breaking. "Retreat to the edges of their system." As the Imperial ships fled, Wells stood on the flagship's bridge, now under human control. "They still didn't learn," he said to his team. "They still think this was our full strength." Stone's voice came over their calm. "Let's hope they learn before we have to show them what we can really do." News of the Empire's defeat spread across the galaxy like a wildfire. On 1,000 worlds, the story was the same. The unbeatable Empire had run from a single planet. But worse was coming. Admiral Stone stood before the United Earth Council, presenting his latest intelligence. The Empire's control is slipping. 3 systems have already declared independence. Their image of invincibility is shattered. In the Imperial capital, panic spread through the High Council. Reports flooded in from across their territory. Lord Black rushed into the council chamber, his face pale. "The humans," he gasped. "They're sharing information with other species, teaching them how to fight back, how to adapt." The head counselor slumped in his throne. "Send the reserve fleet, all of it. Crush Earth before." A new hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. Admiral Stone's image stood before them, calm and confident. "Don't," he said simply. "We've been patient. We've given warnings. Now watch." On the edge of Earth's solar system, humanity revealed its newest weapon. The captured Imperial flagship, now transformed by human innovation, activated its modified engines. Space itself seemed to bend around it. "Impossible," Lord Black whispered. "They've mastered space-time manipulation. In weeks." The flagship vanished. It reappeared instantly behind the Imperial Reserve Fleet gathering near the capital. But it wasn't alone. 100 more ships appeared with it, Earth's new space-time fleet. "Your faster-than-light technology was impressive," Stone's hologram explained. "But you only used it for travel. We saw other possibilities." The human ships demonstrated their power. They didn't just move through space. They bent it. Imperial weapons fired at empty space where human ships had been milliseconds before. Some human vessels seemed to exist in multiple places at once. "My lords," a panicked officer reported, "the humans, they're appearing inside our shields. The space-time distortions bypass our defenses completely." In just 10 minutes, Earth's fleet disabled the entire Imperial Reserve Force. No ships were destroyed. No lives were lost. The humans had simply shut them down, proving they could have destroyed them, but chose not to. Stone's hologram spoke again. "This was just one of our new technologies. We have others. You forced us to advance centuries in weeks. Imagine what we'll develop in months, in years." The council chamber erupted in chaos. Some counselors demanded immediate surrender. Others called for one final attack. The head counselor raised his hand for silence. "How?" he asked Stone. "How did you advance so quickly?" "Because we had to," Stone replied. "Humanity's greatest strength isn't our weapons or our tactics. It's our drive to survive, to adapt, to overcome. Every challenge makes us stronger. Each threat forces us to evolve." As if to prove his point, more reports arrived. The captured Imperial technology was spreading. Earth had taught other species how to resist, how to think differently, how to adapt. The Empire's 10,000 years of unchanging power was crumbling. "Your Empire survived so long because no one ever challenged you properly," Stone continued. "You forgot how to adapt, but we'll teach you just like we're teaching others, if you let us." The head counselor stood slowly. "You could destroy us now. Why don't you?" "Because that was never our goal. We warned you to run not because we wanted to fight, but because we wanted to avoid this. Even now, we're showing restraint." The truth hit Lord Black suddenly. "Every victory," he said quietly, "every advance, every new technology, they weren't trying to destroy us. They were trying to convince us to change." Stone nodded. "Your empire can survive, but not as it is. You need to evolve, adapt, change, like we do, like we're teaching others to do." The head counselor looked at his fellow rulers. 10,000 years of history hung in the balance. They could continue fighting and face an enemy that grew stronger with every battle. Or, "We will consider your words," he said finally. As Stone's hologram faded, Lord Black turned to the council. They warned us to run, he said. Now they're warning us to change. This time, perhaps we should listen. 1 month after the space-time battle, Lord Grey returned to Earth. This time, his massive ship came alone. This time, it carried no weapons. And this time, he didn't arrive as a conqueror, but as a student. The meeting took place in the same room in Geneva where Dr. Reed had first shown the Empire humanity's history. But now the room was different. Representatives from 30 formerly enslaved species sat alongside human leaders. Lord Grey entered slowly, his tall frame slightly bent, as if carrying the weight of his empire's mistakes. Admiral Stone and Dr. Reed waited for him at the table. "We have made our decision," Lord Grey announced. "The Empire wishes to learn." Stone nodded. "And what have you learned so far?" "That strength isn't about size or power," Lord Grey replied. "It's about adaptation, change, growth." He looked around the room at the various alien species. "We thought we were teaching the galaxy order. Instead, we were forcing it to stagnate." A representative from one of the freed worlds stood up, a crystalline being that glowed with inner light. "My people were under imperial rule for 2,000 years. In 1 month of freedom, guided by human teachers, we've made more progress than in all that time." Other representatives shared similar stories. Some had already developed new technologies. Others had found new ways to govern themselves, all because humanity had shown them how to think differently, how to adapt. "The Empire ruled through fear and force," Dr. Reed said. "We offer something different, growth through change." Lord Grey placed a document on the table, the first imperial constitution in 10,000 years. "We are ready to transform the Empire into something new. A coalition, perhaps, where each species can develop in its own way." "And what guarantees do we have?" Stone asked. "Look at your sensors," Lord Grey replied. On Earth's detection screens, the Imperial fleet appeared. 10,000 ships, the largest gathering of Imperial power in history. But they weren't in attack formation. Instead, one by one, each ship was powering down its weapons. "Our entire fleet," Lord Grey explained. "We're removing the weapons from every ship, converting them to exploration vessels, trade ships, teaching crafts. The Empire will maintain only a small defensive force." The room burst into discussion. This was more than victory. It was transformation on a galactic scale. "And what role do you see for Earth in this new order?" Reed asked. "Teachers," Lord Grey said simply. "Not rulers, not conquerors, but teachers. Your species has something the galaxy desperately needs: the ability to drive change, to adapt, to show others how to grow." Stone shared a look with Reed. This was what they had hoped for, not just stopping the Empire, but helping create something better. "There will be challenges," Stone warned. "Change isn't easy." "No," Lord Grey agreed. "But as you've shown us, remaining unchanged is even harder." The meeting continued for hours as they worked out details. Earth would help establish learning centers across the galaxy. The Empire would transform into a cooperative alliance. Every species would have the freedom to develop its own path. Later that evening, Stone and Reed stood on the Geneva building's roof, watching the sun set behind the Imperial ships that now hung peacefully in the sky. "They really didn't understand what they were getting into when they threatened Earth," Reed said. Stone smiled. "No, they thought they were facing another simple conquest. Instead, they found teachers." "Do you think they'll keep their word?" "They don't have a choice," Stone replied. "We showed them a fraction of our potential. They know now. Either they evolve, or they become irrelevant." Above them, the first stars became visible. Somewhere out there, thousands of worlds were experiencing their first taste of real freedom, learning to adapt, to change, to grow. "We warned them to run," Reed said quietly. "Yes," Stone agreed, "but they finally learned to listen instead. And that's what humanity does best. We don't just adapt ourselves. We teach others how to adapt, too." The sun's last rays caught the Imperial ships, making them glow like beacons in the darkening sky. They were no longer symbols of oppression, but of transformation, because humanity had done what it did best: turn a potential disaster into an opportunity for everyone to grow.